Hello, this is Stephanie Zimbalist, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
Ed Robertson along with guest Dean Butler. Dean Butler, the actor known around the world as Almanzo on Little House on the Prairie, Moondoggie on The New Gidget, Buffy's dad on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and the producer of the long-running, Emmy-nominated NBC Golf Channel talk show, Feherty. Dean's memoir, Prairie Man, My Little House Life and Beyond, available wherever books are sold through Kensington Books. You can follow Dean Butler, deanbutler.com, or official Dean Butler on Instagram. As we went to break, Dean and I were talking about the difference between having a craft for acting and having a facility for acting. With that in mind, how important, just in general, whether you're hired because of who you are or hired because you're recognized for having a particular craft at playing this character or that character, Dean, in general, how important is listening when it comes to acting?
Oh, I think listening's huge because, and certainly when it is a back and forth. It's sort of like it's a game of ping pong, a game of tennis. It's hit and react, and I think listening is hugely important, and you can tell when someone's really listening and when they're not. And look, there are ways editors can cut around someone who's not listening and find that moment where there is a sense of listening. But your performance is always going to be better if you're listening and genuinely responding to what you're hearing and seeing in front of you. There's a lot of observation that goes with working well with other people. You have to be conscious of what's coming at you. And if you are, then you're able to hit the ball back with the energy that's coming at you. And that's a good thing.
We mentioned in our open that in addition to all your various on-screen roles in television, you've also worked behind the scenes as a producer in television. What led you into production?
When I first saw the Ken Burns documentary, The Civil War, I think that really just lit me up in terms of looking at ways to tell a story. And here we are telling a story where there's virtually there's no footage really. There's no footage of the Civil War as it took place. There are thousands and thousands of still pictures that were taken during the Civil War. And then you have still pictures, you have beautiful evocative music, and you have this extraordinary narration by David McCullough, and with the addition of some very selective voices that are reading letters or reading quotes from presidents and so on. I was just absolutely gripped by that, and I thought, what an amazing way to capture an audience. And my first little thing that I did was a documentary for my step-grandfather about his life that was done in so much that same style. And I had watched the show. I mean, this is part of my facility, Ed, is I am able to look at something, listen to something, and adapt it or tweak it, play with it, and try and find ways of making it my own. And this is so much of what this work is about. But that was very moving to me. And then I started getting into things where I would actually be involved in interviewing people and putting things to music and all of that. I think one of the things that has been most gratifying to me about that work, Ed, is starting with a blank page or the blank screen on my computer. There's nothing there. You open up a Word document and there's nothing on it. And at the end of the process, there's going to be a lot in a larger document, and there's going to be something visual that supports that, or that is crafted from what has been written. And I just found that a very, very satisfying, fulfilling process. As an actor, you're the last one hired, you're the first one done. There's so much work that goes on creative work that goes on before the actors ever arrive, and there's a huge amount of creative work that's going on after the actors are done. And I think if I would really, if being honest with myself, I found I was much more interested generally in what was going on. Yeah, I loved doing what I was doing, but I was equally fascinated by what was going on before I got there and what was going on after I was done. And so turning to production gave me the opportunity to actually experience that. And I wouldn't look. You're not going to become as known being a producer of content as I've become known for being Almanzo and being connected to that. But mentally, the work is much more challenging and much more satisfying in the end, because you're really shaping the entirety of what someone is going to see. And I have absolutely loved that.
Yeah, I would imagine the only way one can become quote unquote known as a producer is if you do it the way, say, a Quinn Martin would, where you have specific things that that was part of the Quinn Martin stamp, that everyone knew they were watching a Quinn Martin show versus a show produced by somebody else. But other than that, there's a whole bunch of creative decisions or things that have to be done behind the scenes that most people aren't aware of, but that is both the challenges and the headaches and the joy of being a producer.
Yeah, I mean, look, you think of producers like Stephen Bochco, who had a very specific stamp on his programs. Mm-hmm. Don Belisario has had a very specific stamp on the programs that he's been involved in producing. Aaron Spelling had a very specific stock and trade in what he did with, and I mean, he owned ABC mm-hmm. for more than a decade.
Yep.
Michael Landon, as a producer, had a very particular stamp that he put on his. And with that kind of very specific stamp that transcends those hours, that becomes identifying, it's their brand. Yes, you can become known as a producer when you're able to work on that level. I don't think my work as a producer is ever going to go on that level, but it's so satisfying to do that work, and so I am always inspired by the producers whose work I have loved. So that's we're all observers, and we can all be copycats in a sense.
Absolutely.
We take what we see and we learn from it, and we use it, and that's part of creative expression.
Prairie Man, My Little House Life, and Beyond, available wherever books are sold through Kensington Books. You can follow Dean Butler, DeanButler.com, or official Dean Butler on Instagram. Dean Butler and other members of the original cast of Little House on the Prairie will be coming to the Gold Country of Columbia, California, June 6th, 7th, and 8th for a weekend-long celebration. For more information on that event, littlehousegoldcountry.com. Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back.
This portion of TV Confidential is brought to us by our friends at Front Porch Realty, the community of realtors in the Northern Bay area of California that is committed to finding the solution that is best for their clients. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to sell or lease your property in Northern California, call Karen Strain at 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com for more information on how they can help you.
One more item: if you're starting a company, particularly one that is in an emerging market, you know that averting any sort of legal dispute is crucial to your business plan. Our friends at Tectonic Law offer an array of services that can help you avoid and preempt future litigation while also developing and protecting your intellectual property and intangible assets. Tectonic Law serves the needs of a host of emerging industries throughout California and beyond, including industrial designers, beverage makers, artists, farmers, retail stores, health practitioners, wellness experts, cosmetics manufacturers, nonprofit organizations, innovators in sustainable practices, and libraries. Go to tectoniclaw.com to learn more about how Tectonic Law can help your business thrive. TectonicLaw.com. Rock solid representation for groundbreaking industries.
Hi, I'm Kerry Lester, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
He said that if somebody gave you a golf ball and you had to roll it to the hole, you wouldn't roll it like this, you'd roll it like this.
That's true.
And that made a lot of sense to me. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, that should go.
Come on.
Come on.
Oh, yeah. I have it a little closer to my feet.
A little closer, like there.
You're too tight. Don't anchor
Yeah.
it. Are you anchored?
Ah, you're right.
Yeah, don't anchor it.
Don't shout at me.
His teaching technique isn't exactly quiet or reflective.
Oh, come on, baby.
Oh, my God.
First putt I've holed this year.
See that?
How did you become involved with David Feherty?
I had been working with an executive producer named Keith Allo at Championship Auto Racing Teams, which was IndyCar racing, where I produced a show for him called Inside Kart for ESPN. And then I worked with Keith at the United States Olympic Committee, and together we did Olympic Hall of Fame broadcasts, and I was the lead feature producer on those shows. And when Keith moved to Golf Channel, he made this deal with David Feherty, and he called me, and I always have loved getting calls from Keith Allo. He called me and said, "Do you want to produce a talk show?" And I said, "Keith, I've never produced a talk show." He said, "Don't worry about it. You know how to make content. So you just come down to Orlando." And I spent 10 years of my life in an editing room in Orlando, Florida, putting talk shows together, designing conversations, overseeing shoots with Keith, and working with David Feherty, who's one of the most brilliant, clever, insightful voices on the game of golf. I mean, he's insightful about anything he talks about, but David made his name in golf, and so that's what he talks about most credibly. And working with him was a remarkable experience. It made me it made me a better producer. It definitely made me a better writer. David is a singular talent as a presence in the game of golf and as a communicator. He's awesome. So that was a great experience for 10 years working with David.
In the book, you mentioned you mentioned the two interviews that Feherty did with Charlie Rose and Matt Lauer as two of your favorite interviews that you produced for that series. My favorite story, as you relate in your book, David, is the one when Feherty interviewed Larry David.
Yeah. Well, Larry David is just a quirky, raw nerve. I mean, this guy is so... I mean, when you meet Larry David, what you see is exactly what you get. Mm-hmm. And David was... Look, you could always tell when David was really excited about talking to someone. And he was a huge fan of Larry's. And we went to a little studio near David's office in Larry David's office in West Los Angeles, and we set up there and did this great conversation. And one of the things that I just loved about the conversation, which Larry made us take out, was that Larry was incredibly grateful for all the good things that had happened to him with, working on Saturday Night Live, which didn't actually go as well as he would have hoped, but then, getting to Seinfeld and all the things that have followed that. Larry David's had a huge career, but when he saw the interview, and for some reason Keith allowed Larry to see the interview before we aired it, he watched it and he had a couple of comments. One, you've got to take out my gratitude because my brand is misery.
Yeah.
So I can't be grateful for anything. And the second thing you have to do is you have to take out all the pauses where I'm thinking about what I'm going to say. I'm so clever, I just respond instantly, was basically the way he is. So he wanted it pulled up, and it made it a much better conversation. It was much snappier. So, Larry was right about that. But the comment about gratitude, I was really disappointed that had come out, because no one knew that Larry David was grateful.
Yeah.
I mean, but he was grateful, and you could see it in his face when he was talking about it. And I thought that would be something that people would love. He was terrified of expressing gratitude.
I understand. I understand it from his point of view, because he's in the Larry David business. He has to protect the brand. But I respect that you honored his choice, even though you knew the interview would have been better had you left that in.
Well, look, Ed, when my executive producer came into the editing room and said, I just spoke to Larry, we got to take that out. It's not an option. I mean, it's coming out. And that's, when you work for a company, when you work for an individual, and they want you to do something, I have great respect for the hierarchy of what we do. And when someone's in that position, they have a lot of responsibility. And when they want to do something, when they want you to do something, you do it. And look, it wasn't wrong to do it.
Yeah.
It was disappointing to me personally, because I thought, well, we have a real scoop here.
Yeah.
But okay, it was what it was. The interview was wonderful as it was. I mean, it just was it was a special hour. And I loved at the end of it when Larry said, and I think he probably said this to lots of people, he said, and you can just hear him saying it, I made a huge mistake. I'll pay you $50,000 not to air this. And, there was a huge laugh in the studio when he did that. And, of course, he knew that, he was never going to pay it $50,000. But that was an on-brand comment. Mm-hmm. And it was great.
What are you working on next that you're at liberty to share with our listeners?
Well, I'm working on a second book right now, which is really fun. Kensington bought another one from me, so I'm working on that. And I'm really I have to say, Ed, I'm in the Little House business all the time now. I mean, I am full on in the Little House business. We are getting ready to do an event up in Columbia, California, the Gold Rush country, where some of Little House's most beautiful events were shot. And so we're going to be there. The Little House Cats is going on location to Columbia, California again, June 6th, 7th, and 8th, 2025. You can get information and tickets about that at littlehousegoldcountry.com.
littlehousegoldcountry.com. Well, Dean Butler, I'm glad to hear you got another book in you. I always enjoy chatting with you. I hope we'll have a chance to chat again one of these days on TV Confidential.
Ed, you're very kind, and you do a wonderful job. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Prairie Man, My Little House Life, and Beyond, available wherever books are sold through Kensington Books. You can follow Dean Butler, deanbutler.com, or official Dean Butler on Instagram for more information on the upcoming Little House event in Columbia, California, June 6th, 7th, and 8th. littlehousegoldcountry.com. We'll be back with more TV Confidential right after this.